So welcome everybody to the Astrology Exchange with Monte Farber and me, William Stickevers. Today we are going to talk about karma cards, amongst other things, and we're going to focus on this extraordinary method of divination that can help us know about our love lives, career prospects, finances, and answer every question that lies amazingly in these cards created by one of our favorite astrologers, Monte Farber, who has embraced hundreds of thousands of seekers and has developed this over a number of years. This set of karma cards contains 36 full color cards and a 96-page instruction book with advice on centering yourself, visualizing the situation that concerns you, etc. So, Monte, I want you to go into it. Let's do a deep dive into it. But before we go into the actual cards, let's talk about the story, the seminal moment in terms of what moved you to even get, what inspired you and moved you. What was the inceptional moment that inspired you to move in a direction of developing karma cards?
Well, thank you, William, for having me. And I just want to tell you that the reason that I did it was because astrology is fun. And I would be at parties. I live in the Hamptons, and before COVID, people actually went to parties and they talked, and I would do astrology for people. Someone would tell me when they were born. I could tell their rising sign, and if they were born at sunset, I knew there was 6th or 7th house. And I was having a lot of fun doing this. And then they would say to me, "This is so much fun. Why don't you invent a way so that we don't need you?" Basically, so we don't
have to invite you anymore.
Right, exactly. Because you eat too much, you drink too much.
Right. Make too much noise. Yeah.
You make too much noise. We're having too much fun. So I came home and I thought, well, I can do this. This was before computers. I didn't even have an 8088 computer back then. And I thought, I can break the planets, the signs, and the houses into sentence fragments and have them make sentences when you lay it out as planets, signs, and houses. Mm-hmm. And it took a while. At the time, I was working in the movie business, and I tried it out on the different movies. I remember I was doing security. I was in charge of security for the movie of A Chorus Line. Mm-hmm. And one day, Richard Attenborough said, "We'll start as soon as Monty's finished checking out his karma cards with the." I had like 130 people waiting for me to do a reading for so that I stopped doing that. But that it was tested.
You were doing proof of concept on the set.
Yes, with one of the best directors in the world busting me for doing it. So and that costs a lot of money. Let me tell you.
Right. Wasn't it like $900 a minute?
Oh,
back then. I know it's much more now, but back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and this was a huge feature film with Michael Douglas and all those kind of people.
Right.
So I had karma cards on file cards, and a friend of ours was going to publish it. She has a small publishing place in Cooperstown, New York, home of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And she said, "Come to New Orleans for the big book fair." At the time, it was called the ABA, American Booksellers Association.
What year is this?
86.
86.
86. And if you could avoid the dinosaurs walking the earth at that time, you were able to go to a convention center in New Orleans where it's like 1,000 degrees and 100% humidity.
I've been there in August. I know what you're talking about.
Oh my God, forget it. But the food's great. And we went. And we get there, and as so often happens in life, we get there, and she says, "I don't think I'm going to publish your karma card." And she's a lifelong friend. She's still my friend. "I'm too small, and it really deserves something more. And why don't you walk around the convention and see if you can find somebody else to do it?" And I was like, okay, because as you know, as an astrologer, you got to roll with the punches.
Right.
So I rolled with the punches. And I walked around and I saw this booth, and on this one booth, it had the Book of Runes. I don't know if you know the Book of Runes.
I've seen it.
Yeah, at the time I did this, there weren't the plethora of divination tools.
Right.
There was like Liz Green had done a tarot. There was the animal something cards, there weren't, and there was a Book of Runes, which was doing really well.
Right. She came out with the
Barbara Hand
The
Clow. No,
the Mythic Tarot. I have it
Mythic
right
Tarot.
here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
good.
have it right here. Yeah, the Mythic
Yeah,
Tarot.
no, she's for real. And I'm wrong with the animal cards. It's not Barbara Hand Clow. She was the publisher. But anyway, there aren't very many. And these guys had done the Book of Runes. They were what are called a book packager. A book
Right.
packager is basically an agent who manufactures and delivers finished goods to publishers around the world. So they
Okay.
sell foreign rights deals. And this way it's publishing books that have cards or that have photographs, things that the publishers don't want to do themselves. And,
Right.
and and book packaging was new then. It was a company called Edison Sod, and I walked up to them, and one of the guys looked like Terry Thomas. I don't know if you ever remembered Terry Thomas, the actor, and I always liked him, and he was funny. And these guys, there's these two guys, Nick Edison and Graham Sod, I guess. And I said, I got an astrology card game. It tells the future. They said, great, let's play it. So right away. So I played it and they got a great answer. I said, well, what did you ask? He said, we asked if we should publish your book. Let's do it. So we shook hands. I mean, it was that simple.
Wow. Was meant
Yeah.
to be, as they say.
It was beshert, as they say. And at the
Beshert.
same moment that I was doing that, Amy had wandered around with her own stuff, and she had met Stuart Kaplan from US Games, and he had asked her to do a tarot deck, which eventually
Wow.
became the Enchanted Tarot. So the stars aligned on that day.
Right.
And
Right. And it's interesting because if I remember correctly, there was a Saturn Uranus alignment that was forming in Sagittarius. So
the
that
galactic
correlated
center.
with the sort of like the new age explosion that was happening around the West Hollywood at the Bodhi tree.
Yes,
Right.
Stan and Phil, loved them. They were really nice guys.
Right. So, everything was sort of emanating out of there. And then you had in New York City on the East Coast, you had
Zoltan Mason.
Zoltan Mason, but you had what was that bookstore? It went under eventually, but it was like the biggest, I forget the name of the store, but that was sort of like the equivalent.
Well, they had Weiser's.
Yeah, Weiser's, that's it. They had Weiser's bookstore, right? And
Yeah.
they had all these lecture series going on there, and anybody and everybody, especially at that time during the Saturn Uranus, and that's when I was getting into astrology, right? I actually got into astrology in 1986, 87.
Really?
So I remember that scene. It was just exploding.
Wow, you sure made up for lost time because you're a pretty amazing astrologer. Weiser still exists.
It does.
Yeah, Weiser exists as Red Wheel Weiser. They actually published my Instant Tarot, which is the tarot equivalent of karma cards. It's like every card interpreted in 11 positions, so it answers every question. But so those are, I have, I'm doing a Wikipedia page. I never tried it before, but I'm doing a Wikipedia page, and I had to say, I guess I'm a game inventor, because that's really what these are. I'm taking these games that are ancient and trying to brush the dirt of centuries off of the ancient, the gold, the wisdom that's in these ancient things. And I'm not the best astrologer in the world. I certainly think you are one of them, but I am. Well, it's true, and I think that I'm really, really good at explaining to people who have an interest in learning astrology. I can teach them. I just got a deal to do a book on that, and my new book that's coming out now is called Mindful Astrology, and it talks about the rising sign, and that's actually coming out right now. Now that the backlog at the ports is finally over.
Well, we have another episode in the near future to do.
Oh, you're very kind. My karma cards came out in 1988, and at the time, the first printing was supposed to be 15,000, and that was the year that Nancy Reagan was discovered to have used an astrologer. So, and it was on Penguin Books. So the first printing went from 15,000 to 50,000.
Right.
And it just kept going. These are some of the foreign editions of karma cards. It's in Russian, it's in Japanese, Spanish, all these different languages, German. And the really cool thing is I haven't gotten a copy yet, but I just got this picture. It just came out in China. This is karma cards. So this has been going, it's been in continuous print. In publishing, that's called an evergreen title. And that's what they want. That's why they want us to do more, because they want things that sell year to year. That's their bread and butter in publishing. Backlist titles, because most books don't earn out their advance. Most they publish a couple of thousand and they don't sell. But we have about 12, 15 evergreen titles.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow. It's
we're
amazing.
very fortunate. But I think one of the reasons we're very fortunate is because we're astrologers.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
like not an accident. The stuff works, and
Right.
we know when to send the letter out, when not to send the letter out, when to
Right.
talk to someone, when not to. And so that's why I think karma cards is cool, because it teaches you how to learn the planets, the signs, and houses. It comes with a book and the cards. You lay the cards out, planet, sign, house, and it makes sentences.
Right. So you orient the cards by red or blue ends depending on whether you want to receive an answer for an action or an outcome.
Right.
Right.
Because the planet cards are the first third of the sentence. So there's two ways to ask: either what will be the outcome, and that's blue, out of the blue, what's going to come
Mm-hmm.
out of the blue, so that's the outcome, or what should I do about something, which is
Right.
red, which is action.
Which is
So,
action. So
right. So here's the outcome: will be the
right.
creation of, the gaining of
Right.
respect
So
for, from.
what will be the outcome outside of my ability to influence it? Or
Yes.
or assuming you can influence it. It's something that's beyond your ability to influence the outcome. And the second one would be like, what should I do about it,
Yeah.
or because of, or with, or to, or something like that?
Right.
That would
Well,
be the red, right?
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, what'll be the outcome? Because I think the way I have it on here is it's the blue is up top. So the creation of
Uh-huh.
energies to meet the challenge of, wait,
Uh-huh.
and then we get
Got
to
it.
the house, service to others, because it's the sixth house, and that's on
Uh-huh.
the spiritual level. So then
Right.
going back to the middle sentence, the gaining of wait, this is so cool. I can do this. The gaining of respect for or
Uh-huh.
from
Right.
your desires regarding what is good for us. I mean, it's
I
not always
see.
going to be perfect English.
Right, right. So it infers. So it provides enough so someone can infer.
Yes. If you bring the question to it, you will get the answer, because
Okay.
without a question, and so the outcome will be the things brought to life or light. This is on the physical level.
Right.
That's what this PMS, it's not for PMS, premenstrual syndrome. It's
Right.
physical, mental, and spiritual things brought
Physical,
to life
mental.
or light. And here's Aries,
Uh-huh.
resulting from the honesty and strength, because you Aries people are honest and strong. And your work, sixth house is your work. So I had to figure out the spiritual meaning of the sixth house, the mental level of the sixth house, your work, and then it's upside down. But I tell you, everyone who's used to looking at Instagram live stuff is now able to read backwards,
Right.
because so it's a whole generation. So it says demonstrate. I'm down here now, upside down.
Right.
Demonstrate your willpower as a full-time job, because the sixth house is your work.
Right.
So it's a lot of astrologers use
Right.
this to teach their classes the basics of planet science. And the book is actually
Right.
pretty good. And it's
Mhm.
actually, and I'm not just saying this, it's actually one of the best explanations of why the houses are what they are.
Yeah. I also like the fact that it gives answers on 3 levels: spiritual, mental, and physical.
Well, thank you, thank you. I mean, I'm very proud of it. It's a great invention, and obviously, it survived the test of time, which is a good thing to do. Plus, it has helped me to put food on the table,
Mhm.
though it doesn't last long on the table, as you can tell. I eat it right away. Yeah, so I mean, karma cards is great. And I'm really glad you give me a chance to talk about it. I don't want to monopolize the conversation about karma cards,
Well,
but
no, I think it's necessary because it's such a powerful tool of divination that can really, I believe, make a radical change in people's lives if they work with it consistently. I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's much better than looking at your horoscope forecast that you get in the newspaper or
Well,
from the woke astrologer here. So so
we advertise sometimes in there.
in
I
the
know what
woke, okay.
you mean, because they might as well put their political affiliation on the cover.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm expecting a whole 12-page article on BLM, the BLM organization, Black Lives
About,
Matter, and
you might not be disappointed.
no,
Yeah.
I'm sure it won't be.
But
Uh,
the thing is that as an astrologer, you realize how similar people are and how different people are. There are some people, I'm sure, in the BLM movement who are pissed off as hell. They don't want to wait, and they don't want to wait for change. The Uranus Saturn square is kicking everybody's ass, and as you've said many times in your webinars, innovate or die. So to them, that's their innovation.
that's their innovation, right?
So,
Right. To
so
invoke a radical social liberal revolution.
yeah, I
Right.
mean,
So that's
yes.
it. Yeah. Okay.
No, not, but that's what astrology does. And that's why I want
Right.
people to get into it, because astrology says, you can't look at a chart and say this person is a axe murderer or Mother
Con
Teresa.
artist. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the level that you're operating your chart on, and it makes you a lot more compassionate. I
Right.
still don't want anybody to come and burn my house down. I mean, I'm not that compassionate.
Right.
And
There are limits.
and I'm not giving it back to
Right.
the first people. Sorry, I mean, I'll contribute to their causes, but and I'll buy CBD oil from them, but I'm not giving my house back. So so astrology has been so important. It's been our language of love for my wife and I for 47 years.
Hmm.
That's why I feel really good being the Johnny Appleseed of astrology with the karma cards. And I think that's
Great.
also why they sell. They sell year after year, all these languages. I can't wait for it to come out. I mean, I think it's out in China, because that's some market right there if they get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to really explode in China. That's my prediction. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I really do. I mean, look, more people watch Godzilla versus Kong in China than they have in the United States.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. I'm
Wow.
not. Yeah, no. So that tells you that, they might have a communist government, but the people have a different, they're more in
No, the
line with
people,
us,
yeah, the
right? They're
people are
people.
wonderful.
Yeah.
The people are
So,
wonderful. And I do have to say, though, that they can be awfully, I don't know if superstitious is the right word, because we've worked
mhm.
as book packagers. We started packaging our books after the Enchanted Tarot, because the packager that we started with, when we were going to do something called The Alchemist, which we had to change the name on because Paulo Coelho came out with The Alchemist. So we have this thing, it's called The Mystic Messenger, that used to be called The Alchemist. And they were like, what do you guys need us for? And we're like, okay. So we started packaging books ourselves, and we work with China a lot. And first of all, you can't be too New York with people from China, because it's very hard for them to admit they've made a mistake, even if it's a glaring mistake.
Right. They have to save face. And that's very similar to what I've experienced working in Japan.
It's yes, and it's it's not cute. It's who they are, and you just can't. You got to know this stuff. It's like getting off the plane and going like this. In some countries, that means fuck you. You just can't do that.
Right.
You got to know the culture of what you're doing. So, but the Chinese people, like the Russian people, and I'm part Russian, are very superstitious. I don't know if that's the right word. They are totally consumed with honoring the dead, which is a wonderful thing that I wish we had more of in this country. But that's why I think karma cards could actually do quite well in China, like your prediction says. I know a lot of Chinese people are super cool. They think we're a little too loose, but
Right.
but who knows what's going to happen. Also, thank you, Julie Evans. She says
Right.
she
But
loves
I find it interesting that many Japanese people who live here after a decade, and Chinese immigrants I've talked to who've lived here for, a decade or longer, could never go back to the
No.
social constrictions and rules and where the perception of the group outweighs the perception of the self, meaning
Yes.
everybody else's opinion matters more. So they're like, I can never go back to that. Yeah, I like to visit, I love the food, I love seeing my family members, I certainly
Right.
miss it to at a certain nostalgia they connect, but they could never go back once they're here. And I think a lot of younger Chinese are moving in that direction.
Yeah, well, also because of the way they treat women. I mean, there's a problem with the way they treat women in so many countries. I was just going to say, here's karma cards in Japanese.
Yeah, right. I'm sure it's a big hit in Japan.
Yeah, I hope. Well, I hope so. And I think now that it's in China, it's going to get a look at again from a lot of different countries. as long as people keep it planet signs houses, it works. There's a woman I was telling you before. There's a woman has 20. I got 20,000 hits on this video karma card she did. But she takes the cards and mixes the planets and signs of the houses together and reads them like a tarot deck, which it's not.
Right.
It's designed to be planets, signs, houses.
Right. Well, yeah, I get it. But the karma cards could be read that way. I could see how she's doing it.
No, definitely. And she does a great job doing it. I wrote to her, I said, look, you're entitled to do it any way you want. Once you bought them, it's yours. But it's just like it's meant to, I just want her to know how it's meant to be, because she admits on the video, I have not read the book. It's like one of those flip throughs or unboxing type of things.
Right.
So it's okay, fine.
Right. Well, why don't we do a little karmic card reading for a question that everybody's been asking me over and over again for the past several days, and I bet you can guess what that question is.
It must have something to do with Bitcoin.
Aha! You must be psychic, my friend.
I am. What do you want to? What do you want to know?
Everyone's saying, should I sell? What will be the outcome? What should I do? Actually, that's probably the better one.
Okay.
What should I do with my Bitcoin? Should I sell or should I hold? What can I expect?
I would do it as two different ways. What will be the outcome if I sell my Bitcoin now?
Okay, great. Let's do that one.
Okay, and by the way, it's like 49 today, everybody. So
right. So
okay, what'll be the outcome if I sell my Bitcoin now? You do the same question 3 times. One of them just jumped out. So
it's actually 48, just so you know. It's
48.
48, 195.
Well, sorry, I gotta go jump onto Coinbase and buy some more. So I'm a prejudiced card reader. That's the lowest it's been in a long time.
Right. Wait a minute. Just think about it. It was only $9,000 this time last year. It was only right. So
everybody's afraid it's going to go down to 0.
Right.
Which it ain't going to do. But anyway, I don't want to prejudice my reading.
Yeah. Let's see what the cards say.
So this is what will be the outcome if I sell mine thing at 48. Okay. So the outcome will be Mars, which can be really hasty.
Okay.
The drive for I have them backwards.
Right. Okay.
God, I am so dyslexic.
That's okay.
The drive for dedication to achieve. Wait a second. I don't think it's the greatest idea. Wait, I'm doing this backwards now, right? Okay. So
that's the order we're seeing it is the order we should be reading.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just like an astrologer reads a chart, a planet, a sign, and a house.
Right.
God,
okay. So it's Mars in Capricorn in the 3rd house.
Right. The drive for dedication to achieve your ideas, the confronting of, focusing on short-term thinking and trips, action resulting from the rules imposed by who and what is around you. So Mars in Capricorn in the 3rd house is like talking a good business game, I guess. I mean, you know what Mars in Capricorn in the 3rd house is.
Yeah, sure.
So it might seem like a great idea. So now we're going to say what will be the outcome if
you hold it.
If I hold my Bitcoin.
Or even buy more while it's down at 48,000.
Okay.
So buy more and hold versus sell.
So as I'm reading and I'm thinking about this, what will be the outcome if I hold or buy more? Okay. I had a friend who was the head of the largest.
By the way, I just want to state this before we lose the 3rd house is a cadent house. Cadent means decline, to decline.
You mean in horary?
In horary.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, well, actually in astrology, the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th house are cadent houses, and that means to decline in Latin. So, what that would mean is that Mars in Capricorn is exalted, and that would tell me that the item of Bitcoin is of exalted nature. It can outperform. It's a winner, but it is in a state of decline, temporary, right? So in other words, it would be worse if Mars was, let's say, in Taurus in the 10th house. where the price is going up, but the quality of the instrument, the coin, Bitcoin in this instance, was in detriment, right?
Yes.
Right. So
Now this is interesting because that was actually really interesting, and I'm going to have to watch this to hear that, because I was trying not to. I
right.
might have influenced this thing too much. So it
You
says,
want to do another swipe since we were talking about it?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Because
I think
Saturn,
yeah.
because
Right.
no, because I was thinking. All right,
All right. I'm
just
going to keep my mouth shut. You just
no.
just do
It's
your thing.
fascinating. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just interesting that I saw that Mars means, okay, should I sell the Bitcoin? It's in decline, but should I sell it? Well, Mars is exalted here. That would say no. The quality of the instrument, meaning its value, will ultimately outperform the perception, the current perception of the market.
This is so cool. It's so weird because I have to hold them backwards. Now we're talking. Okay. Now, and once again, Aries. Okay. And once again, this is the 6th house.
Okay.
Okay. So it's another decadent house. Okay. So this says the North Node, which is the big yes in the karma cards. And this is for holding or keeping more. So I can't even read it.
So what's the first card?
There will be energies to meet the challenge of service to others.
Mm-hmm.
Success from your desires regarding what is good for us. Benefit resulting from the honesty and strength of your work. So this is for keeping it.
This is for keeping it. And what's the first card planet? Because I can't see that.
It's the North Node.
Oh, it's the North Node in Aries. I see.
So it's the I have the nodes as yes and no.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I
so
see.
And if to read the reverse,
mm-hmm.
and which is weird because to hold them, to get them to look right on the screen, I have to hold them double reverse.
Double reverse, right?
Woo.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, have faith in your willpower as a full-time job.
Uh-huh.
Do not worry about what you think you know about serving. And now is the time to do it your own way and do it a little at a time.
Right.
So I would say hold it. And I have to just say to everybody who is an investor, I had a friend who was the head of the largest gold commodities trading firm on Comdex. And he told me, he admitted to me, investing is gambling. You shouldn't invest in money you only lose if you sell, unless it goes to zero. And as he said, gold is never going to go to zero. But if people should not be nervous Nellies when they're investing. It's the reason I didn't do it for a long time, because I thought, you know what, I can't really do this. And my friend says that I'm going to just be checking the market every minute. And you reach a certain point where you say, you know what, I think I can do this a little bit. And then you do it, and don't be a baby.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, look, anything you do in life is 80% psychological, 20% mechanics, right?
Right.
How hard is it to get on your computer and buy a stock, or get on Coinbase and buy Bitcoin? It's not a very hard process. It's all psychological. What happens between those moments between you buy or sell something, right? And I think what's really important here is the investor psychology.
Yes.
And I think we always need to, we always like working on our psychology in general. If we're doing divination, we're working on our psychology. If we're doing self-reflection, if we're meditating, if we're learning, if we're doing productive discussions, it's all about fortifying our psychology, hopefully, right? Investor psychology should be something we are vested in, even more so than the actual mechanics of the trade itself.
Right. Well, you have that great article where you talk about fear of missing out, the FOMO and all.
Yes, FOMO. Yeah, I pushed up there. Yeah.
That's the first one, and I agree with you. That's a big one.
Yeah, FOMO, and we're seeing that. Is it too late to get into Bitcoin? And this is where you have poor investor psychology. I could tell you, I've done a lot of financial depression defense readings, and the biggest issue I've told people is, say, it's not your chart, It's not even so much your asset allocation, although that could be tweaked and improved. It has more to do with your investor psychology is the reason you have underperformed. And now you're trying to play catch up at the age of 65.
Right.
Right.
Or 71.
Or 71. Right. So it doesn't really matter what the age is. Right. The investor psychology is it doesn't matter. I mean, you can, once you develop mastery in your investor psychology, it doesn't matter what age, you can actually outperform even the greatest hedge funds if you master. See, that's probably the one thing they have over a majority is the fact that they have developed mastery of their investor psychology. Because even, and the reason I state that with confidence is because they all have different asset allocations and strategies, and yet they come up with outstanding results regardless what they invest in, because they have superior psychology, investor psychology, and probably they have to have some level of mature, developed psychology for that investor psychology to be implemented. So they're not giving in to the whims
Right.
Of the latest Facebook astrologers saying, warning,
Oh no,
time to get out of Bitcoin and go into Ripple XRP because that's where the money's at. And I've been hearing this over and over and over again for the past 3 years. Meanwhile, Ripple is like still under $1, right?
Yeah, and
I know. I think it hit $1. I'm sorry. It's
isn't
a little
there some
over
kind
$1.
of like legal action against them or something?
Yeah, it's legal action. The government's coming down. They're going through. I mean, this is going to the Supreme Court. I've heard.
Wow.
In terms of, yeah, so there's lots of questions about their, they failed their audit. There's a lot of issues going on with them. So,
well,
the point is investor psychology is key and crucial. And I think using karma cards will help someone's investor psychology than most other stuff they're going to be reading out there. Right. So
karma cards, crypto edition.
That's right. There you go. We got it. We have another breakthrough.
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to do
that's on the way.
I always wanted to do karma kids for kids.
Karma kids,
this
karma
is simple
cards.
Enough.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like these tools, like people like, yeah, should I invest? Should I invest more or should I just hold off? I mean, those are just simple things. Should I buy? Yeah. Should I sell? Should I invest? Should I, should I diversify? Should I listen to this financial guru? Yes.
Well, right. It's funny that you say that because apropos of what you said about investor psychology, the reason I call them karma cards is because of the psychic Edgar Cayce's definition of karma, which was meeting yourself.
That's right.
That's what we're talking about here, getting in touch with yourself. Because let's say you get an answer on the karma cards and you goes against, okay, well, do what you want to do. I'm not saying listen to the karma cards, but it helps you get in touch with how you feel about something. You meet yourself. When I was eventually in the movie business, I went from being a location manager to doing security because I had a little bit of martial arts background from getting beat up by my friend who was a black belt. That was the extent. He was going.
He was a good teacher, wasn't he?
Oh, he was. He was merciless.
Right.
And he lived with me for a year before he went into the Navy. And he would say, let's do this. And the next thing I'd know, he'd say, well, that was a death blow. I was like, oh, thank you very much.
And you survived it.
And I did. So one of the things I found out is there's a lot of people who are really good and they get in a fight and they're not really good because they don't have the right attitude. They're not willing to hurt somebody.
Right.
And this has actually been studied in the military. And during World War II, they had to go down the line kicking people to get them to shoot people because the natural inclination is not to.
Right. It's very difficult to motivate people to go to war. I've read a number of books on this. It's not so easy to get people to kill other people.
Right.
Very contrary to what we believe in a newspaper where all we read about is people killing and maiming and doing violence on people.
I know. Yeah, there's a book called On Killing. Can you imagine being in the subway reading a book called On Killing? But I actually saw this book. It's written by a colonel who trains the military.
Right.
And he had this problem. But after they developed the techniques that are now in video games and using targets that look like people for Vietnam, they didn't have the problem. They were able to do it. And so when people say video games can't lead to violence, it's not necessarily true. I mean, it's not true for everyone, but it's certainly part of what changed this dynamic of people resisting hurting another person.
I see.
but karma cards can be used for meeting yourself and getting in touch with your investor psychology. I love this idea. We have to get stickers for the next printing. Crypto edition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's the psychology is really, I mean, psychology, what your psychology is 80% of how successful or fulfilled or how, uh, to the degree of what you'll achieve in terms of mastering success. I mean, it's really crucial, and I really believe these tools, these skills, actually these tools that will help develop and fortify that psychology, because divination has always been part and parcel, going back over 5,000 years of history, in terms of helping people self-reflect and gain greater insight and depth to understanding their motivations, and and inspiring them to take action, to cultivate the necessary moral courage. I think that's another big issue, is
Yeah.
the execution. That's where the courage lies, but you need a sound psychology before you can execute to the level, right? So, and this all goes back to our original question: should I invest in Bitcoin? Right? Am I missing out? Or am I allowing FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, plague my decision making and plague my psychology?
I love FUD.
Yeah, FUD.
And one thing that the karma cards, and because your idea started me on an idea, because everybody's been talking about, well, Uranus is in Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus. And if you're an investor, or if you're someone who follows you and you want to get a little insight into it, and I'm not saying it's going to be the ultimate, you would just you can just lay it out, the karma cards. I don't know which house to use. Let's use the second house because we're interested in the money, how it affects. No, let's use
Right.
the eighth. Or use the eighth house.
No, I think the second house. Well, the second house would be gains, assets, and gains. Debt and losses would be eighth house, and then pure speculation, in terms of the speculation aspect of it, would be fifth house. The actual market sentiment. Yeah,
that's interesting. All right, so I laid out, and I'm doing this backwards now because of the wonderfulness of. So if you have your, this says so that. I didn't do it backwards enough. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
The other
there we go.
The other backwards.
The other backwards. Okay.
Okay. So Uranus and Taurus in the second house, an unusual example of resources to maintain your beliefs, a different way of looking at the practicality of what you value. An unexpected change resulting from the productivity. And when I say productivity, it can be the lack of productivity.
Right.
Productivity of your resources. So that's just like a jumping off point,
Okay.
And then if you would ask what you should do about it, God, I am so dyslexic with this. Stir up the situation. So this is what Uranus is doing: stirring up the situation by using your beliefs patiently. Be open to new ideas about using the most direct way and get what you need. Invent a way to use the most direct way and get what you need. Oh, sorry, what you want was the other one. But anyway, it gives you the feeling of what Uranus and Taurus has to do with your money: stirring up the situation, being open to new ideas, invent a way. So
there you go. Innovating.
Exactly.
New ideas and innovating.
Exactly. It's exactly what you were talking about when you were telling people that they got to innovate or die. And that's what the businesses are trying to do now. And so you're saying it's going to the multiverse.
Absolutely. I believe that a majority of our activity on the internet will be on the multiverse between now and, let's say, 2032. And the reason I bring that up is because we're going to have a Jupiter, Pluto, and a Saturn Uranus conjunction at the same time that year.
Great. I hope I live through it.
Yeah, you'll be around.
I hope so. Well, because Pluto, let's see, I'll be 82. Pluto will be on I have early degrees, third degree of Aquarius is my son. So that's where Pluto's headed.
Right.
But that could just mean a renaissance. Amy and I are having a renaissance of our books now. We're getting all these book deals, and all our covers are new and really nice, and doing a book on her art and all. So Pluto does not necessarily have to be bad, even though I have to say the Pluto card and the karma cards is pretty intense.
Yeah, why don't we go through that one? That one should be interesting.
Pluto and Aquarius. Oh my
Pluto and
God.
Aquarius. Let's talk about that one because we're
Yeah,
going to
we
go
can
into Pluto and Aquarius very soon, right?
very soon.
Very soon.
Yeah, because like Jupiter was in just like a whiff into Aquarius, and that's going into Pisces, but then it'll come back out.
It'll come back out. So yeah, we'll just get some. That'll be interesting. The fact that when Jupiter goes into Pisces, we don't really know what that will do to the crypto market yet. So we're going to soon find out if it's as bullish as we'd like it to believe, or maybe it is more of a bearish indicator. But I do believe when Jupiter goes in Aquarius, based on some of my earlier findings, that's when the market, the crypto market in particular, is really going to make a major transition.
I think so too. Well, that's what Pluto's known for. And Linda Garland did the art for these. She did a great job on them. So Pluto is the need for control of genius to experiment. So the need for control to control genius. I think we all need that with the vaccine passports. We need to control that. And the opposite side of that is they're actually trying to control people. So, you know, the positive is you got to control this desire to control. And then you have an obsession, that's Pluto, with the discoveries, and a power struggle resulting from eccentricity. So that's Pluto and Aquarius.
Right. So interesting.
So I didn't put it with a house, but
okay.
So it's like resurrect your vision. That's a good message from Pluto and Aquarius. Get to the heart of what's new and different about whatever. Do or die. You must use an unconventional way.
There you go. Innovate or die.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that really, yeah. So it's a reinforcement. But I think the innovation is not just limited to buying Bitcoin, right?
No.
The Uranus and Taurus, that certainly makes sense. This type of innovation is much more pervasive and systemic in terms of how we're living our lives and our values and beliefs. I also believe Pluto, when it goes into any time it goes into a new sign, our collective beliefs and values get shaken up at the very core. Yeah. By the way, for those who are asking, hey, when's that going to all happen? That's March 23rd, 2023.
That's Amy's birthday. Good Lord.
Wow. That's going to be some solar return.
Yeah, really. Hey, listen, March 23rd this year was pretty intense by itself, as was January 22nd. But that's what I was going to do, like an Instagram video today, to tell people you can't look at the aspects and think it's disaster all the time, because things can be good. There's a spectrum of meanings in all the planets, the signs, the houses, the tarot cards, you know, because Pisces is the most glaring example. Pisces is Mother Teresa helping the addict whose life has fallen apart and is in the gutter. And it's also the guy whose life has fallen apart and is in the gutter, because he tried to escape, or she tried to escape, because they wanted that nicer world that Mother Teresa is actually willing to get her hands dirty doing. And those are both Piscean concepts. You know, you're talking about what's going to happen when it goes into Pisces. Pisces as a sign, in my experience doing readings, those people can make a fortune because they can see everything, because it's the last sign. It has a little bit of every sign in it. Right. And my friend who was the guy from Comdex, he said that some days he would go out and he would see the whole gold picture in the world market, and he knew what he was about to do was going to change it and how it was going to change it. And he was like a super Pisces. He would have been the Secretary of the Treasury if Mondale had gotten elected. He was a very, very wise man. So I have a lot of faith in Pisces people, even though they got the reputation of dreamers. Right.
And sometimes Pisces can make a lot of money, but it doesn't really matter to them. And
no, they don't care at all.
They don't care. Yeah.
He used it because he wanted to help his family. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think when it comes to aspects, a lot of people can relate more easily to the difficulty that they're going through, that the aspect is invoking in the collective, right? So the Saturn Uranus, for instance, would be dealing with the collective cognitive dissonance. I mean, the facts that they see before them versus what they watch on TV or what they read on the internet, on Facebook, which is basically, sort of shaping, like the collective mindset is in massive contradiction, right, with the reality that they're facing in their day-to-day lives. So so you could fall into that trap of saying everything is fake news. I don't trust anything, right? And that's one way to, right? That's like the first phase of it. But then what do you do with that? All right, if that's true, then what is really going on, and what do I need to do to make the changes? Because if it's really clear things are not going the way they're telling us, right?
Yeah.
So the Saturn Uranus would be very much, I mean, how would you look at that? How do you think someone could, well, this is what I think. Before I ask you, I think Saturn Uranus forces us to change not only our beliefs, but to raise our standards, because Saturn is just standard, right?
Yeah.
What is the standard? If the New York Times says it's so, it's the paper of record, then it is so. That's Saturn, right? And Uranus comes along and says, the New York Times is fudging the numbers. The New York Times is not really doing real journalism. I mean, there's plenty of evidence now. And it's not just in politics. We're saying, if you look at the Wall Street Journal now, right, there's very little discussion what's happening on the crypto markets, and this is like the biggest revolution. It's almost like as if I don't know what the big rock magazine was back in the 60s, right? I don't think there was a rock magazine.
Not really.
In the 60s, but it's almost as if like Life magazine wasn't covering the Beatles, right? This is equivalent to what's happening, right? And it's the same thing now. What you read in the New York Times about the collective political situation or the body politic of the country, you would think that Joe Biden is going to be one of the greatest historical presidents of all time with the way they write about the administration. And we happen to notice, right, it's very, what's obvious to us is that is probably not going to turn out to be true. And there's some very disturbing omens and signs and intimations coming out now that we have a vacuum in the White House. We have a vacuum of leadership in the White House. Who's really in charge, right? So none of that's being covered, right? So Saturn Uranus, Susan Rice, you're probably right, forces us to change our standard, right? To change our standard in terms of what shapes, right, what we're going to consider news, what we're going to consider actionable information, right? So this is where someone wrote Tiger Beat.
I love that. That was more if you were looking at Date the Rock Stars, I think.
Date the Rock Stars, yeah. Well, but I'm just saying is this is what's going on now, is that what's really happening is not being discussed unless you go to some fringe internet site or go, like people were calling me saying, what's the big deal about Coinbase? What's a Coinbase? What's the big deal about it? Right. I mean, this is can you blame them?
Well, also on your webinars, which I think everyone should join GTA.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm serious, because I learned so much when I watch your stuff. When you put your pointer on where we are on the curve, we're still on the early adoption stage, moving into the, more widely accepted. That's why you don't see it. But I have to tell you the truth, as somebody who lived through the 60s, we didn't trust anybody. And if you listen to the newspapers or you listen to the television or the radio and you told somebody that, they thought you were nuts.
Right.
They wouldn't have anything to do with you.
Right. You wouldn't trust anyone over 30.
Well, exactly. Hope I die before I get old. But the Who is saying a different song now. They're singing a different song.
Well, they become part of the very people they were kicking back in the day. That's one of the ironies now. And so, like this Saturn Uranus, we're in the middle of the first one and the second one. We've already had intimations especially with GameStop and the Reddit, the Reddit.
Well, the next one's probably going to be the World Economic Forum.
Right. So the World Economic Forum, right, that's going to culminate in the deployment of Fed coin, the China coin. Oh, we're going all crypto. So sell your Bitcoin because you won't need it. Right. And so that will be like, this new standard being imposed on us. And there's this defiance.
Yes, that's Uranus.
Standard. Yeah. So I'm just saying, we could think negatively about it, or we could say, all right, there is a way to hedge. There is always a hack, right? There's always a way. The Saturn Uranus always teaches that there's a pathway to power for us to a strategy, if you will, to deal with that adversity, right? To deal with that adversity constructively. You can opt out.
Well, you can opt out and become a beachcomber, but life is a gamble the minute you wake up.
No, what I'm saying is, like, there's all different ways now. Like, you could decide, I'm not going to remain employed and stick with this pension fund that's being managed by people who can't even get a 7.5% return, which is insane. Like, that's just, I basically incompetent people are running these pension funds. I mean, you can't get a 7.5% return over the past 11 years because you're being forced to stay in instruments. You're bound by these Wall Street instruments, right? You can't get out of them. You can't sell out of them. I mean, was it the biggest hedge fund, best managed hedge fund in the world in Denmark says, we're getting completely out of bonds. I mean, that should be like the biggest news, right?
Now that's a giant canary in the coal mine.
Right. So what I'm saying is the Saturn Uranus, right? There's a conundrum. Your financial advisor says, you know what? The market's getting way overpriced. You need to get more in bonds. I just had a client like this. And yet 2 days ago, right, during the Mercury, Venus, Uranus triple conjunction in Taurus squaring that Uranus, we had Denmark, right, the largest pension fund in the world in Denmark, say, we're getting out of bonds. We're completely, it's over. So what's going on here? What's the real news?
That's earth shaking.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that that's happening in politics. That's happening in business, right? Like 40% of all the companies on the S&P 500 are zombie companies that continue to buy back their stock, refuse to innovate in order to give the perception they're still profitable. This is 40%. It's actually higher, but I'm giving a low number. Kathy Wood of ARK Investment says it's 50%. Wow. And she said 50% of those companies are going to go under because the innovation is happening so fast that at some point when the government stops buying out their corporate debt, right? When they buy back the stock, they just put it on their debt. This whole thing is going to collapse, and all these technology companies, and we're not talking about Facebook here, folks. That's not a real technology company, right? Is going to emerge, right? And basically a paradigm shift is going to occur. And she mentions, of course, space exploration, crypto, CRISPR technology, all these things, right? All of these technologies is just going to take over almost overnight. Saturn Uranus, this massive overnight disruptive change.
Right,
soon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and the thing is, it's not like that's what's great about astrology. It's not a surprise to us. We've been standing here for years going, when's it going to happen? Like the Richard Pryor routine where he talks about the ultimate question when he's imitating the preacher. The ultimate question is, how long can this bullshit go on?
Right.
And when you look at the stock market screaming at these numbers, and you realize it's all because the Fed is printing money and giving it to the companies so they can buy their stock. I mean, it's propped. It's like El Cid. I don't know if you ever saw the movie El Cid. At the end, he's dead. They strap him to a horse and send him out to lead the army.
Right. Sounds like Biden.
Yeah, weekend at Biden's.
Weekend at Biden's.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here on that one?
I don't know. I mean, I wish everybody.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can the karma cards help with timing?
Yeah, I like to think so, but at the same time, all my free readings come with a money back guarantee. So what are we asking?
Well, let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's go back to Bitcoin for a moment, since everybody seems to either believe it's going to zero or it's going to go to $1 million by 2024. Right? There's two groups of people. Right? I love Biden. I can't wait to reelect Trump. Bitcoin's going to zero. Bitcoin's going to $1 million. I don't know. So there's like two camps in the world, right? Two camps. The United States is going to collapse. China's going to take over. No, China's going to collapse. The United States is going to maintain its hegemony. There's two camps. It seems like we're splitting globally. It's not just in the United States. It's more obvious in the United States, right? We're obviously leading the way of this bifurcation. So somebody's going to be really right and somebody's going to be really wrong.
Saturn Uranus, extremes.
Extremes, right? So in terms of the timing, what did the karma card say in terms of, let's use Bitcoin, for instance, because that is very much reflecting the paradigm shift that's underway.
So what do we want to know? Just describe how Bitcoin's going to do?
Let's give an idea. When is going to be when will the plausible deniability of the naysayers on Wall Street that have convinced a majority of the astrological community and the rest of, and 50% of the rest of the planet, that Bitcoin's going to zero, going to collapse?
Okay. Yep. So I hope I can remember how to hold them up now. Okay.
It's all right.
When is the truth going to dawn? Come on.
Right.
What's the situation?
When is
what's the buzz? Tell us what's happening. What was that song from?
When's the epiphany?
The epiphany. There's a good one. That's a great word. Okay, let's see what this says. Ha! Jupiter.
Wow.
In Scorpio.
All right. Jupiter in Scorpio.
And the house is the 9th house. Well, Jupiter rules the 9th house, everybody. And if you had your karma card, you would know that. Okay. Learn or teach the extraordinary power of prayer as if it came from God. Be positive about the highest and lowest aspects of the philosophies and law. Okay, so that's about be positive about the highest and lowest prices of Bitcoin. You gotta be positive. And of course, as you know, when you read a chart, you gotta do free association with your mind. And then on the physical level, grow and expand, control the situation, and do it in a big way.
What's interesting about that? Jupiter in Scorpio occurs in September 2029. That's not too far away in terms of the price forecasting of when Bitcoin's supposed to hit $1 million.
Huh.
Right.
Well, then there you go. That's cool.
And the 9th house, I'm just trying to think about the 9th house in relation to that.
Well, Jupiter rules the 9th house.
Jupiter rules the 9th house. It's in domicile in using Hori.
Yeah.
So
it says the granting of purification to resurrect spiritual values.
Right.
And I think, people forget the aspect of Bitcoin. It was invented sort of like to cure the ills of the financial system. Right.
The lack of trust.
Right.
In the financial system. Right.
Blessings from the secrets of long-range thinking or travel.
Right.
I mean, there's your answer right there.
Right.
And good fortune resulting from the power of what is to be shared. And in that debate that you posted on your crypto group,
right, the gold versus Bitcoin versus gold debate.
Right. He talked about how Bitcoin is a way of enabling everybody to get in on making some money or storing some value.
Right.
And he talked about how there was an egalitarian aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they both seem to agree that it's a store of wealth. They both seem
that it's an asset. It's certainly an asset class. Yeah, they're both in agreement that it's certainly an asset class. They don't agree whether it's a currency or not. And Michael Saylor, by the way, says no. This is an asset. This is more of an asset than it is a currency.
Right.
Right. But it can function as a currency.
It can. Well, especially now that don't they have like vending machines or ATMs with
Right. Absolutely. So you can actually take your Bitcoin and institutions will borrow your Bitcoin address and you generate interest on that Bitcoin. That the money you generate, interest from the Bitcoin, is actually tax-free. And then you can you get a card where you can use that card on your ATM machine to get money from that interest that's being generated from your Bitcoin.
That's cool.
And that is tax-free money.
No, I didn't know that. I have to go back and look at the article you wrote about that. That sounds good to me.
Right. So there's a application out there called Abra, which you can put on your phone, and you can buy. You can. They have every type of coin listed out there, and it tells you the percent of interest you can get. So you can just say, let me buy $1,000 of X coin that generates, like, let's say 10% interest. Like you could put buy $1,000 of US stable coin on Abra, and then you say dedicate that, like store that to generate interest, and then they'll send you a card, and you can then use the money generated from an interest to use it as an ATM to go shopping with it.
Huh.
That is the breakthrough
That
that
is
is
the
now
future.
happening. And
Yeah,
you got 10% interest. You're talking about 8%, 10%,
that's
12%
enough.
interest on these coins.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's actually amazing, because I think, as you've pointed out many times on the webinars that you do for GTA, which everyone should join. No, I'm serious, because I watch them religiously because I always learn stuff, and inflation's eating everybody's lunch.
Absolutely. And it's just getting started, because I believe the inflation rate now is about 12%.
Yes. And if the weather changes, like the solar minimum, like Theodore talks about,
Right.
if the weather changes, and I gotta say the spring is not exactly here in the Northeast, and the it's been a very cold spring, and if the weather starts screwing up the crops and the cattle and all this other stuff, the price of food's going to go sky high, which it's already doing.
It's already doing now, right? Look at the price of lumber. Look at the price of copper. Look at the price of the fundamentals that we need for manufacturing, for construction. They're just, they're
Yeah.
just booming. There's a commodity boom. And but the price of that is going to show up in the inflation. And the fact of the matter is when they devalue the currency more and more as they print more, the purchasing power of that currency continues to go down. So where do you put your money? Where do you get yield on your cash?
Or or just store the value even. But you're talking about 10% yield. That's amazing.
10% yield. So I mean, the banks give you what? 1%?
Nothing.
Nothing, right?
Point
0
one.
point, right.
Yeah.
Right. And yet your financial advisor, not yours, but many people will say, no, I'm keeping my money in cash. And that's just insane. For example, if you had $1,000 5 years ago in your savings account, you would need to have $1,700 to have the same purchasing power for 2021 that you
You mean
had in 2015.
17,000?
No, 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 no. $1,700. $1,700. So you would need $1,700 today to buy the same goods and services that you could buy with $1,000 in
Oh,
2015.
Gotcha. Okay, I missed the first part.
Right. So people just, they're like, what? You got to be kidding me. So your bank is certainly not giving you enough interest,
No.
right? To generate 17, to go from 1,000 to $1,724.
Right. And wages aren't keeping up either.
Oh, forget the wages. The wages are going down, right?
Yeah.
So this is look, I mean, Saturn Uranus is class warfare.
Yep.
Class warfare, where the proletariat versus the bourgeois. I mean, this is what,
Right.
if you go back.
Structure versus revolution.
That's right. And this is what the seeds are being planted. And it's not going to take, well, William, that might be true, but it's going to be another 5 decades. No, it's going to be another 5 months.
No, I agree. And that comes right back to what I was saying before when we were talking about BLM. If I was a person of color, I would not want to wait. And I don't think these people want to wait. They might not be doing it the right way. And I abhor violence. I've been a victim of violence, and I was a bodyguard and all this other stuff.
Right.
But I understand why they do not want to wait, and they just gotta get the violence out of their stuff. But,
well, if you want to really stick it to the man and take down the oligarchy and the powers that be that, pull the strings and deny their own existence, and, the best thing you could do is put your money into cryptos. That's one of the most powerful things you could do right now. And if you just, a lot of the young people are doing it just for that reason.
Oh yeah, I think the millennials are definitely doing it. Just like they don't want to own stuff, they want to rent stuff. They're
Right.
even coming out with someone's coming out with an SUV that you don't buy, you rent it, and you rent pieces of it depending on
Right.
what you need. I mean, there's all
It's
kinds of amazing stuff going
right.
on.
And you can use crypto for that. They prefer, this company would rather you pay them in crypto for that rental period.
Really,
Right.
but who
Yeah.
wants to give up their Bitcoin?
Well, no. So what you do is Bitcoin is more like gold, right? So what you do is you use other crypto for those type of transactions,
I get you.
right? So it's sort of like this. What is better? American Express, MasterCard, gold, cash, silver, stocks, bonds. Well, it depends, right?
Yeah,
Each one has a real world application depending on what your outcome is. One size doesn't fit all. And that's another thing we need to recognize with these other coins. Remember, all these coins solve a technological problem or a
right.
financial problem that the mainstream financial institutions have refused, repressed, denied, delayed in developing, because it didn't have any financial expediency or political expediency to fix those issues. So now all these coins are solving these problems, and the
Right.
youth who doesn't know any different, they haven't been immersed in that world for too long of the centralized finance system, see the solutions, are using those solutions, are gaining by those solutions, and are doing things like you're saying. They're renting, they're doing ride sharing, they're doing, in other words, they're not vested the way the previous generations were.
Right.
And
And the previous stuff is going to wither on the vine. That's how it works. Because when the disruptive technology comes along, I mean, look at what Amazon did to the malls, and now Amazon is buying up malls to turn them into Amazon distribution centers. I
right,
mean, if that isn't the Ouroboros, the snake eating itself,
right,
yeah, but that's just it. The younger people today, they don't want to wait either. Like I was saying about the
right. So
BLM
this is a
people.
nonviolent way to make that revolutionary change,
Yeah,
right?
and because they can, it's like what that joke about the dog and licking himself. Because
Right,
technology affords you these. You can be an artist, you can be all, but you can also do finance, like you say, DeFi. You can do the decentralized finance now from your computer. You don't have to go to the Wall Street and all this other stuff. Blockchain enables you to buy stuff without a stockbroker.
right. And so, like, for example, all those malls that Amazon's buying up, those distribution centers, you'll be able to walk in with your iPhone, right? And you could have on your wallet, on your Amazon wallet or Apple wallet, or Abra wallet, where you can, what we
Get
just talked about
interest.
earlier, right? You can have all these different coins, and you go there to distribution center, you order or pick up or whatever, and then you just wave your phone over a device, and it'll say, okay, I'm going to take X% from these coins, this coin. In other words, it'll all happen automatically, instantaneously. It won't
Right,
matter what coin you have.
right.
Amazon doesn't care. They just want the value exchange.
Right, and it'll probably have all kinds of conveyor belts that'll bring it out. By the time you hit the parking lot, it's there waiting for you.
It's there. It's already wrapped, right? And a robot will be putting it into your trunk. So,
And if
who
people
happens to look
think,
like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie,
depending on what you've asked for, but the
right?
weird thing, people think that sounds futuristic, but there's a store in New York City called B&H Photo where that's happening right now.
Uh-huh.
By the time you get to the counter, that your stuff is being assembled and it
Right.
comes up on a conveyor and it's there.
Right.
So it's going to be nothing for
It's going to be
Amazon.
nothing, right? So the world is changing faster than 50% of the population is even aware of or can handle. Because I know a lot of people say, William, I've had some GTA members say, William, I can't be a member any longer. I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened? Did I fail in a prediction? Did this? No. All of that's great. Your predictions have been spot on. It's just that what you're talking about, the rate of change you're talking about, is something I just can't accept. And the more I watch it, the more anxiety, even though I know it's true. No, really. I mean, some people can't
Well,
accept this level of change. And a lot of people, especially in the metaphysical community, don't see it coming. They might be really good at the
But they not
cards.
see it coming. It's there. It's
I
at the
well,
door. It's at the door.
Telling you, look, I just was at the largest astrological conference in 2018, and people came up to me and, I was doing my spiel and I said, I'm so glad I came to this lecture. Unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't get in because they didn't give me a big enough room. There was a lot of people waiting to get in.
I'm sure.
And they said, because I realized that the future's happening faster than I believed it would.
That's the nature of Uranus.
Right. And, what's interesting is I looked up what everybody else was talking about. I mean, it was like there was hundreds of speakers there, but it was very little about that. It was more about how to find your soulmate and, how to win in stocks in 2022.
Yeah.
And I mean, in other words, those are fine, but what's happening here, what's driving everything is this paradigm shift.
Oh,
this technological revolution.
Yeah. And Uranus as a planet represents the energy that says, as I always tell people, when you're having a Uranus transit, you better make your life a statement of your originality, because if you don't, Uranus will help you. And the last thing in the world you want is Uranus to help you make your life original and exciting and new, because it'll make it the worst. It'll change things at the worst possible time in the worst possible way, as a way to show you that you can handle it. You can. It's just
absolutely
do it yourself.
Well, every next level of your life will demand a different version of you, and that requires a new standard, a new version, new vision. I mean to say, a new vision with a new set of standards. You can't have a new, you can't have new anything unless you have a new standard, right? I mean, right now we're like debating what those standards will be in terms of the financial system, in terms of money, what money means, because a new standard is emerging, right? And the global consensus hasn't been reached yet, but it will be by 2029, according to the karma cards. So
I love it. Thank you.
So what I'm getting at here is that there you go, folks.
Yeah. Right? And the new version is the best one yet. No, 2029 sounds great. I'll be 79 years old. I'll have my wealth will be stored. The books will be selling.
Right.
A lot of karma cards and other
right. Right. You'll be on the verge of world domination.
I'll be happy if I'm alive.
Listen, it's interesting. Ray Kurzweil in The Singularity is Coming stated that 2029 would also be the year that artificial intelligence would match human intelligence.
Wow. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. And the reason you're talking about 2029 is because Jupiter will be in Scorpio, and that's what
Correct.
the karma cards
and
said.
That's what the karma cards. So it keeps going back. See, so folks, you can just get the karma cards. You don't have to be a GTA member, but no, GTA might help.
No, I think for those of you who are watching and are not a GTA member, it's like, what's your problem? Because it's a talk about an investment that's going to pay off. Just knowing what's going on is so important. As Walter Annenberg proved with TV Guide, one of the richest people ever, he proved the information about the information is more valuable than the information. And you're giving people information about the information. So let's hope that you'll be the next Walter Annenberg of astrology.
Well, I'm sort of like the Darth Vader right now of astrology.
That is so
most of the astrological community. Well, no, not in terms of people who get introduced to me, but of people who've known me, because what I'm saying is basically invalidating their worldview. I scare them, right?
I see.
And what I'm doing with astrology, they find to be very troublesome, because I don't back off from prediction. And as you know, these astrology organizations now have shifted completely away from prediction. And
I don't know, because I don't care about them.
Well, what I'm getting at is that group who believe that their pathway to power and success is being part of an astrological organization, which used to be true, by the way, and is no longer true, find what I'm doing very disturbing and threatening.
You mean telling the truth?
Calling it like I see it, and not framing everything within a radical liberal framework.
Well, you're doing meme life. You're being true to yourself. You're doing all those memes. You're living them.
Right. So,
I have to say, Amy and I, as people who lived through the 60s, we put all this stuff into practice. Spirituality works. And we went, it's not like I don't really care what these organizations do. I wish them well. It's just that we did our own thing It might not have been as big as if we had kissed ass and did all this other stuff, but that's not who we are. We went around it, and you can succeed being yourself, as you're proving by being yourself.
Right. So that's the thing. And that's why I had to step away and completely divorce myself from them. It wasn't, I still have some friends in those organizations who actually run some of those run one of those organizations, but a number of them, but they're in agreement with me. Like you need to do your own thing. And what's important about this is that somebody, right, has to be talking about what's really happening in terms of the world we're moving towards, not the world we're living in, or not the 1999 world we ought to be going back to, or whatever world when it was all good, right?
It was never all good. I mean, but the best is yet to come. Maybe I'm a Pollyanna, but I still think that there's really good stuff coming. I mean, when we had
absolutely
Sandy out here, I hated it. I hated it because we went back to 1980. No cell phones, no computers, no nothing, and it was horrible. I like the future. Maybe it's because I'm an Aquarius and Jupiter and Venus in Aquarius in the 6th. I think the future has a lot of wonderful things, but there's no excuse for somebody not to know what's going on now. There's just no excuse because it's all over the internet. If you look, it's like this thing with vaccinations, which are not vaccinations. But that's a whole other. Vaccination is contains live virus. So forget about it. But anyway, there's no reason for a person to not educate themselves anymore. There just isn't.
Right. Absolutely. So look, this is where, I call it willful ignorance. And that is another aspect of Saturn Uranus, willful ignorance. Wow. Don't show me the facts. I'm not interested.
So right? that's an imbalance, trying to stay on the Saturn part of the square and not getting into the Uranus part.
Correct. That there are disruptive trends showing that those facts are not so factual after all.
Yeah, and it's not like anymore. Yes, all Facebook and Google and they're all suppressing, and Twitter, they're all suppressing it. Well, get off your ass and find out another place. Don't just
right take action. Right.
Exactly. You could, yes, because you can go to CoinDesk and read their bullshit, or else you can go to other places and read somebody else's bullshit. What resonates with you, and then you can ask your karma cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you really seek the truth and say, I don't care how upsetting, disturbing, I don't care if it gets me to a place where I decide to change my political affiliation, walk away from my religion, to completely discard the academic history that was pushed down my throat by my professors. I mean, if you're willing to really say that, right, to God or whoever you believe in, and say, I just want the damn truth and nothing but the truth, the universe will deliver that to you.
For sure.
It will, right? It will shadow you will go through a very, it will have very powerful ramifications, right? And it will shake things up initially, but then instead of that breakdown, you're going to have that breakthrough. So it's a breakdown that results into a breakthrough, that results in a revelation that then puts you faster on the path to enlightenment. Because you can't be living in this collective worldview and believe I'm on the path of enlightenment. Yeah, I'm going to be an enlightened being. When I'm going to go to the next level, when I reincarnate, all right? Nah, not going to happen if you're totally buying into this worldview and believing that is the way life is. Hate to say it. And that's what the metaphysical world, unfortunately, most of it, and especially its leadership, fail to see.
Well, we are its leadership. Guess
we're the underground, right? We're like the underground. We're like those. What was that? Wasn't there in Berkeley? There was an underground magazine.
Everything.
Right.
Underground,
it was like
everything.
Underground. I forget the name of but at any rate, yeah. And it was like every college student was reading that. That's where they were getting their source, right?
Well, listen. The book of Tao says one who would lead must follow all. And I know you and I have an interest. You give out so much stuff, even on on your Mind page and Facebook, and I give out a lot of free stuff. We're trying to help people. You're trying to educate people. That's what it comes down to. It's like I found out that I'm a teacher, and you're like a college dean. In terms of, so we are. It
doesn't feel that way, but thank you.
Well, no, I'm serious. Yeah. Listen, but that's the symbol for Aquarius, and Uranus rules Aquarius. Uranus rules astrology.
Right.
The symbol is an.
I say it's a co-ruler along with Neptune. That's how I see it.
You mean really, because it
Yeah.
used to be Saturn. Saturn used to rule.
Yeah, and that's correct. By the way, you're absolutely correct. If you look it up in the Rex Bill's dictionary, Saturn is the traditional ruler of astrology, and because it rules it rules ordering principles,
Right.
The
And it
ordering
was
principle
also
of the universe.
and it was also before Uranus was rediscovered. So
Right,
it's the
right,
last visible planet.
right. So the invisible ordering principle of the universe, right? The cosmology, the fundamental construct of the cosmology would be Neptune, and and the um the operating system within that would be Uranus.
Well, I'll buy that because they both
Yeah.
look very similar, which was predicted by Zechariah Sitchin, my old friend who's
Mhm.
dead, unfortunately. And he predicted that they'd be very similar because that's what the Sumerians said 5,000 years ago. That and their color, and it wasn't until 1979 when they did the flyby that they
Right.
found out, he's right. And but the thing with Uranus
Hmm.
and Neptune, I can see because they care about humanity.
Right.
Except
The
Neptune,
elevation and
yeah,
of consciousness, of humanity's consciousness as a collective consciousness, right?
right.
Right.
But
It elevates.
Neptune actually really cares, Mother Teresa style.
Right.
Uranus is more like the Snoopy cartoon. I love humanity. It's people I can't stand.
Right.
But Pisces
Yeah,
are
right.
really
The principles of freedom, liberty, fraternity, the pursuit of happiness, that would be Uranus. And then
right.
Neptune would be more of
Have some
the
chicken soup, darling. No, well, because look at it. The symbol for Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus
right,
and Neptune, let's say, is
right,
an old guy like myself who's strong enough
right,
to hook, to hump this big bucket of water up there and is pouring it out, and it
right,
represents ideas being
right.
poured out to humanity. But
From the
it could just
collective.
as on the collective, and it could just as easily be spreading chicken feed.
Yeah, it could even if it can be the next hit song.
It's because Aquarius and Uranus
Right,
sends it out there and says, if you're hungry, eat. If you're not, don't eat. And or
right,
here's some real
right,
truth. Here's some truth. Here's some stuff that's
right,
going to make you free. If you do
right,
something about it, fabulous. If not, you're
right,
an asshole. Fuck
right,
you. And
right,
Neptune actually really cares, but the Aquarius as a sign doesn't really, it puts it out there, but doesn't necessarily stand there and watch to see who's doing it and who's not.
right. I get
Maybe,
it. Sort
yeah,
of like the Olympian gods, right? They're
right.
there, but they don't really seem to care. Certainly, yeah, it's a different way of how, I would say certainly the understanding of the broader cosmology or the divine cosmology falls under the realm of Neptune, and that Uranus operates within the realm of Neptune. So Uranus might be, right, the operating system, and Saturn is how that operating system gets implemented out into the mundus, into the world, right? But
right.
the overall construct, right? We're not just talking about the universe, but we're talking about the obviously Neptune goes beyond the physics of this universe or any multiverse.
Yes.
It is actually, right, of the entire cosmology of existence.
And Neptune even sacrifices its own orbit because every once in a while Pluto comes within its orbit
Right,
because Pluto is such a weirdly
right,
elliptical thing.
right. And Pluto represents the unknowable, right?
Right.
Represents the unknowable of the divine,
You know,
right?
it's interesting you say that because I always think of the generation with Pluto and Scorpio. And I know for a fact that I cannot know for a fact anything about
About
Pluto and
anything.
Scorpio. Yeah.
About anything.
And
What do we
especially
know? All right.
about Pluto and Scorpio people, they have a knowing that goes beyond words. And it must be so
Right.
difficult for that whole generation to deal with
Right.
everybody's bullshit. And
Right.
everybody's just like mouthing off and having, I don't, and they are probably going to embrace crypto and the multiverse big time because it
Right.
goes,
Yeah.
it goes,
I mean, so definitely the merger of Uranus and Neptune would be the multiverse, right? Because
yeah,
it's technology, but it's also another virtual realm. It's an augmented virtual reality. That's Neptune. But
yeah,
the technology framework of it is Uranus.
right.
So really, we should look when the next Uranus Neptune aspect occurs. I could look at that real quick. And but that's probably not too far off, because that would tell me that the metaverse becomes as much of our lives as the internet is today.
Well, what was that movie with I'm just trying to think. There was a movie where they sort of live in the metaverse, and then they like go out of their houses very rarely, but they're actually there was there
Uh-huh.
I think it was a Bruce Willis movie, I think.
Yeah. And they can actually enter. What do they call it? They're like robots that look like them, that interact
Yes,
in a day-to-day world, but they stay immersed,
in their
right,
house.
in their house, right, literally in their bedroom with these
Right,
devices on them, right?
right. Like
Yeah,
the Oculus.
like the Oculus, except it's like they're immersed in it
Right.
completely, their whole body, and they interact with the physical world. And I don't remember the surrogates,
Oh,
these
okay.
robots that look just like them, right?
Right.
And at their peak, because some of the people are like 83 years old and their surrogate is 30 years old, right? When
No more.
when they were at their best, at their peak, and they socially interact, they have sex with each other, they work, they, you know what I'm saying, they do
Oh
everything
yeah,
we would normally do,
I
right? And
remember.
that would probably be more akin to what really is going on, that, right, that we are just surrogates for our souls that are
Sure.
operating, right? We're just surrogates. So
Yeah.
we're just emulating what's already been engineered, right? Trillions of years ago. I don't know how old the multiverse is. Or the universe is 13 billion years old. That's not a long time. So I'm sure the universe is created before this one, because the first thing that comes to my head, God says, do you think this was really my first time? Right? So this is the first time I made a universe, the first time I created a life form, first time I created an intelligent sentient life form. Come on, right? So we're really just emulating what's already being done on a cosmological level.
Right. And according to Sitchin's research, there's been many civilizations on this planet, and this one is 5,000 years old. But there are people on this planet, 200,000 years old. I know there was one from the depths of the ocean was raised this device. I think it was an astrolabe, and it was carbon dated to be some outrageous age, and it could be from that time. That
Right. It completely upends everything we thought about the development of humanity, uh, right? Because the engineering required for that would mean that
oh, you know
mankind,
about it. Oh, you know
right?
about it.
Yeah, right. So, by the way, surrogates. So it was in 2009, and I'm recommending everyone here to watch this movie along with Ready Player One. The surrogate movie is set in a futuristic world where humans live in isolation and interact through surrogate robots. And the plot is a cop is forced to leave his home for the first time
Right.
in years in
Right.
order to investigate the murders of other surrogates. So he actually physically has to do the work now because the
Yeah,
surrogate can't. Yeah.
I know. Drop your donut.
Right. And I think they had like an orgasmatron, like they were
Yes.
having sex, but instead of touching each other, they would take a ball, right? And they would
Like
have
it,
these like
like in
virtual,
Sleeper, the movie
like
Sleep.
Sleeper, right? So what's interesting is I would recommend these two movies for everyone to watch. Forget whether you like the movie or not. It's not about that. I
It
mean, these
wasn't
movies,
bad. It was
but
good.
they're good movies. But regardless, because some people go, William, I can't take science fiction. Just tell me the movie. No.
Oh,
You're missing out.
really?
Right. No, I have people like this. Trust me.
Oh, they've never
And
seen Blade Runner, obviously.
right. So, but these movies are pertinent to what we're talking about in terms of the world we are moving towards, whether you like it or want it, right? It's going that way regardless.
Right. And someone just asked about Sitchin. His name was Zechariah Sitchin, and he wrote a series of books called the 12 Planet series. And he was a scholar, and he's talking about Sumeria. And it's really fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. I think he had the unified field theory that Einstein was looking for in mathematics. He actually discovered the unified field theory of the origins of people on the planet, and it comes from the planet Nibiru. I know it sounds crazy, and the Anunnaki, but that's for another discussion.
Right. I think we had that
We
discussion a
might
few
have.
videos back, right? But I would suggest anyone take a look at some of the other, for those of you new, we've done we've covered some of these topics in depth, although I'm always happy to talk about these things in the future.
Well, yeah, and once again, not only did I once see a UFO in the sky, but for anyone who's into who says it's settled science, well, guess what? Science says if there's billions and billions of planets, to say that there's only one planet with life on it makes zero sense, because that's, talk about ethnocentric.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
really,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the craziest stuff.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. So yeah, we'll certainly talk more about Sitchin, Sitchin.
I think it. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
right.
Right. So
He was a
we'll,
crusty man, but he really had his
right. You
stuff
know what he
together.
was completely passionate about on a day-to-day level?
A lot of things.
Real estate.
I did not know that.
He was one of the biggest real estate magnates in New York City.
Zechariah.
That's right.
Good for him. He never
Yep,
mentioned it, not once.
Not once, but let me tell you something. He was not one of these broke metaphysical publishers. Or
Oh, no,
writers.
no. Oh, no. I bet you he owned that building he lived in, which was right on Central Park West.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he had his office in Rockefeller Center.
Well, he was an amazing man, and I was glad to call him my friend. And he asked me and Amy to do the children's book version of his work, because
wow,
yeah, because
what an honor.
He like the art that's behind me, which is you know, the ancient world of Atlantis or Poseidia.
Right.
He knew that Amy's work was like the way art used to be, that it had knowledge in it and conveyed knowledge. And he knew that I knew his work well enough to expose it to children. And I told him, I think if I do it, I'm going to do it along the lines of Planet of the Apes. He said that was his favorite movie.
Yeah, I remember that film, 1968, during the Jupiter-Uranus Pluto triple conjunction. And that's a film that's still profound. I mean, Rod Serling was one of the writers.
I did not know that. And
yes,
and, that was
I believe it was him. I believe it was his story, and then it was primarily his story.
Well, he was an absolute genius. It scared the crap out of you when you were a kid, back in those days. But did you ever see To Serve Man?
Absolutely, I've seen it multiple times.
Oh my God, one of the most amazing shows ever done. Yeah. And you see a lot of actors, like even William Shatner was in one.
Well, that's how William Shatner was discovered to become Captain Kirk, because they quick story here, they had casted everybody, but the original captain, who he actually was a major movie star. He played Jesus Christ in The Greatest Story Ever Told. His wife was managing his career, right? And she said to Gene Roddenberry, the producer and writer of Star Trek, said, my husband doesn't believe in doing kiddie shows. We're not gonna do this. So they had no captain. They were 2 weeks away from principal photography for the first episode, or 3 weeks away, something. It was very close timeline. And they were sitting in a bar, and there was a black and white TV, and they went and they were all sitting around going, what the hell are we gonna do? And then they see that show on the Twilight Zone. I forget the episode. It's like,
well, he's looking out the window of an airplane, and there's a gremlin on the wing.
20,000 feet, it's like, I forget that, but he's on the airplane looking at a gremlin, freaking out. And Gene Roddenberry says, that's our guy. And they go, well, he says, they waited, and they said, who's that guy? William Shatner. And they said, call his agent now.
Oh, that's amazing.
And when he arrived, at the airport, they met him, and they said, Gene Roddenberry says, we don't need to do a audition. We're just going to sign him now, right now.
I love it.
That's how it won. That's how he won.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for telling me that.
Nightmare at 20,000 feet is the episode.
Wow.
Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Everybody should watch that episode. That was,
if you want to see
scary, right?
That was really, oh my God, Twilight Zone could really scare you because it was so well written.
Right. Season 5, episode 3. And that's what made William Shatner's career. And then he becomes Captain Kirk. And of course, the rest is history.
Yeah. And he looked really great back then.
Oh, yeah. He was a very handsome guy, for a good chunk of his life. So
for sure.
Yeah. So, and look at him now. He's still making movies at 91. He just came out with his latest film.
God bless him. Well, Star Trek was just so amazing.
Yeah, someone just mentioned the opening scared me. Yeah, it's really, if you watch Twilight Zone with the lights down,
Oh my God.
turn off your mobile phone, put the lights down, and watch a Twilight Zone. You'll know exactly what people in the 60s and
Yeah.
70s were going through watching them.
Well, yeah, and you know, it's one of the, and talk about something that survives the test of time. You can watch them right today, and it doesn't need cell phones, doesn't need computers.
Right.
It'll move you
Right. And
in
you'll be
ways,
thinking about it for days and
days,
days and days, right?
especially to serve man.
Right. So, it's very interesting how the cultural transformation of the 60s of this Uranus Pluto was having an impact through television, through these type of
Yeah,
shows that really they really provoked us. They got us to shift our thinking about things,
yes, for
right?
sure.
And I think the same thing's now happening. It's not happening on television, or at least public television. It's not happening that way now, but it's happening through virtual reality, augmented reality, cryptos. It's happening. So the Twilight Zone effect is still having an impact, but in a different medium.
Yeah. Well, this is an exciting time to live. As some, I was watching Fargo, the television show, and the girl in there saying, "Oh, I wish I lived in the '60s." No, I think it's better now. I mean, this was the '70s she was talking about.
Oh, I see.
It's set in the '70s, and she feels like
Right.
she just missed it. But I think this is one of the most amazing times to live. I'm really glad I'm
Absolutely.
alive.
We're much more connected now than we were in the 60s or 70s. I came of age in the 70s and early 80s. And so I remember my childhood in detail in the 60s. But, I mean, all the biggest events in the world were going on around me, but I was just too young to attend. I realized, I was still in the crib when the Beatles were at Shea Stadium, which was only 6 miles away from where I was, like
But you
everything that
felt
was
it.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
There's a tremor in the force.
There was a tremor in it for us. I'm lying there in my crib while all this stuff, and I'm realizing because I actually I'm going to be doing a future presentation on the counterculture and social transformation of the 60s, the astrology of this social
Well, yeah, I
transformation.
mean, it's the Pluto. What was it? The Pluto and Virgo, Uranus Pluto convergence.
Uranus, Pluto, and Virgo, which
Right,
started in 62. And that was the time when the Beatles, right,
right.
come together and all these other. So I have a list of all the major events in the 60s, of big database of every event. And I realized, wow, most of that time I was lying in my crib. And I was only miles away from all these big events, with some of the exceptional events happening in London or California. Most of those events were happening in New York,
True,
surprisingly.
a
So
lot.
yeah, so in a way it was just, I sort of felt I did miss out. But that being said, I do agree with you
Oh, this is
that
much better. This is
much better.
Be Here Now. Julie Evans, you couldn't be more right. That was a book that changed my life. Be Here Now.
Right. Yeah. And
So,
that came out, I believe, in the early 70s, correct?
right, it's one of those. I just did a thing with Sandy Sedgbeer where she asks different authors what's their favorite 10 books. Amy did it too. It's really worth watching. I don't mean just mine.
Right.
Amy's is actually better. But books are powerful. I'm glad to be part of books. I'm really glad that you gave Karma Cards a play. That was great.
Well, look, I really think it's just a very powerful tool. I think there's other powerful tools as well, but this is one that they can get access through right through Amazon, and it can
Right,
start
and then
working
they'll
with it.
know what you're talking about. I mean, because obviously, astrology is super important, and knowing the basics of the language, they get so much more out of your GTA and the different things you say. If they knew, when they hear Uranus or Saturn, if they knew the keywords or just the
Right.
basics, they
Yeah.
get so much more out of it.
Well, I think the other thing too is a lot of people don't see the relevance of astrology in the real world because they can't make the correlation, and that's something I've been working hard to do with the GTA group and along with the crypto group, in terms of what's happening in the technology space and in terms of the price movements relative to that. Like for example, like it seems every time there was a major alignment in the 60s, we had Sergeant Pepper's come out. Then that was followed by the Summer of Love in 67. That correlated with that nice, juicy Uranus Pluto, making a nice sextile aspect to that Venus Jupiter conjunction in June of 67. I mean, the planets were screaming, right?
Yes.
They were right. They were screaming this archetypal power that was being reflective almost instantaneously in the collective that became historical events. And I just figured, wow, we have this like excellent track record of correlating all these major things. So if we happen to know where the planets are going to be going forward, then we can actually say we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we have enough of an idea of what it will be.
Right.
And we can then say safely, you know, these years, these months, these weeks is what we can expect major developments, and you can profit on that development. You can be proactive and make changes. You can go with, you could ride the wave, right? Instead of paddling uphill or paddling upstream, right? You can now be part of that. Right?
Yes.
So,
and you have a track record. The reason that we have publishers coming to Amy and me is because we have a track record. You know, like I showed all the different foreign editions. You know, we've sold almost, we're getting close to 3 million books in 18, now 19 languages with China. And when you have a track record like you have with the predictions you've made, and you've been so accurate, I mean, people who listen to you with Bitcoin made a lot of money.
Right. I've actually, and this may sound like bragging, but the people who follow me said, William, you've outperformed every hedge fund on the planet.
Right. So
right?
There you go.
And, but astrology doesn't work, right?
Astrology doesn't work, and all the free readings, and we're not investment counselors, and we're not offering advice or anything like that.
Right.
And it's for entertainment purposes only.
The thing was I don't have the ability to out trade those hedge funds. I just knew where the trend was going and what the archetypal resonance was. So in other words, what was behind the trend? I knew what was behind the trend, and I could then extrapolate how powerful that trend would grow, right? Using some very fancy software.
Right.
So, I mean, I had one, look, I'll just tell you right off the top of my head, you know, I had one client said I made 250,000, right? I made millions and bought a house. I'm up 450%. These are just certain statements that were, you know, and I'm not trying to sell anything here. This is what people told me.
No,
right. So, you know, and then I've had other people too say, you know what? You're not telling me enough. Even though you give me price predictions, you've been pretty good. You're still not telling me enough because I want to know exactly how you're doing it. And unless you tell me that, I'm not interested.
And they got to buy the dip.
Right. They're right. And how, right. So you're not telling me exactly when to buy the dip, and that's all I'm interested in. And that's such a limited view of how to see it, because it's really not about that. It's about really helping people be informed enough and developing their investor psychology, because the mechanics is easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's easy for you. It's easy.
It's easy. Like once you get your Abra on your phone and you get your account going, you're going to be doing.
That's the future.
Well, that's already here, right? You're going to get your, probably this week. You'll say, William, I got Abra now and I'm making, 10% on my stable coin,
I'm going to do it. I'm definitely going to.
Right. I mean, just for fun, put 1,000 in, saying I'm making 10% on stable coin on USD coin. Right. For those of you. Right. So who initiated in this, it's like, wow, just feels good. Like you're making money while you sleep.
Right.
So
and like the banks do, and they never let anybody else do it.
Of course not, because it's a monopoly. It's an oligarchy. We've all been brainwashed to think we have to hand over our money to somebody else to manage it for us. I mean, that has got to end. And I see this pervasive in the metaphysical community.
I got to get this out because how did that get in there?
What?
No, I was going to say, because it is a plutocracy. It's the powerful who are ruling the world right now. Look at that picture, people. That's the Pluto. That's the plutocracy, and the power struggle, the need for control. That's why they're controlling the price of gold and silver, because they're accumulating it before the reset.
Absolutely. It's all about the reset. Everything now is all geared towards the reset. And we'll talk about it. Maybe we should do just an episode just on the reset, because we're getting closer to it. By the way, folks, it's May 18th when the World Economic Forum meets for the Great Reset Initiative. That's the title. That's the title. I can't make this up. The Great Reset Initiative. Right. Watch the movie on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, because it's in Singapore. It's not in Davos.
Right, not in Davos. They moved it to Singapore because China is going to be part of this. We're going to have the head of China attending, the great Kamala Harris, the future president. Everyone can't wait to have. Going to be going to be a main speaker, along with the great Prince Charles, who's about to become King Charles.
Yeah.
Right. They're all going to be signing off on this. And remember, it doesn't help any of us. This is all about them, not about us. But this is all about this reset they're going to force on us. And what we're talking about today with the karma cards, we're talking about with Bitcoin, what we're talking about in terms of cultivating an independent mindset, and living a life of truth and integrity, regardless of what you must sacrifice, give up, relinquish in terms of your old worldview, your old way of thinking. All of that is the only way to have the breakthrough while everything else is breaking down, while they try to implement this reset.
Yeah. I mean, at times like that, then I'm not as upset as I am about heading towards the end of the conveyor belt, because you young people have to fight the good fight, because especially people with children, they can't let this, speaking about how long can this bullshit go on, they just can't do this imposition of COVID passports and all this other Nazi stuff.
Right.
It can't happen. And that could be the dark side of the Uranus Saturn square.
Absolutely. There's always an upside, a good side.
Yes.
And there's always a shadow side, right? So we have to look at it both ways. Astrologers who only want to see it one extreme or the other, right, often, miss the point, and are not very effective in providing strategy to people, right? Because really, it's taking this information and implementing it in a way that empowers your life and emancipates you from the constructs and controls, visible and invisible, that are limiting your development. And it sounds very metaphysical, but that's really what it is.
Wait a minute, it sounds metaphysical. It sounds like the book copy, the back copy of your book. I like that so much.
Right. Well, ultimately, I'm gonna when my solar arc progressed sun moves into Gemini, I'll be writing that book, or a number of books. I still haven't come up to a theme. You know what? I'm not ready yet. It's generally like as soon as I'm ready, it comes into my head real quick, and then I have to do the hard part of building it out.
If I was you, I would listen to what you just said, because what you just said, that sounds like a book. It's really important what you said.
Well, thank you. It just seems like common sense, right? And once you have the perspective, then once you sort of see through, and that's the thing. What is really the truth? What's the truth, right? And this is where we keep referring about this reset, but it's not just about a reset. Remember, Saturn Uranus also deals with not only resets, reboots, right? Revisions,
new world order
transitions, new world order, right? So the invisible ordering principle upgrade, that's a paradigm shift. It's not going down, it's going up. So it deals with all those at the same time. And that's why it's not, this is one of the best times to be alive, but it's also one of the dramatic times to be alive as well. Meaning definitely. We just can't keep operating like this pre-COVID world we lived in. That's just not right.
It's not coming back.
Not coming back.
No, it's not. And as you said, every day there's something else in the news saying that they're lifting restrictions in different places. Not necessarily New York.
No, forget.
But I tell you, there is a woman who made the most impassioned speech. I'm trying to remember what her name is, in Orange County, an impassioned speech against the COVID passports. Mm-hmm. And she likened it, to the Nazis, Mengele. And there is resistance. There is resistance to the Pluto control and to the Saturn control that is bringing up.
Youth defiance, passive resistance. Also, you have youth defiance, which implies violence, right? And you have passive resistance, which is more like the Gandhi, Martin Luther King type of form of resistance, happening both at the same time with Saturn Uranus. So we have to remember it's two extremes operating at the same time, not one or the other.
Right. No, it's true. And you got to be comfortable with the extremes. You were saying that there are people that can't be comfortable with the extremes. So if they get the karma cards, then they'll be comfortable with the extremes. That's good. I'm going to add that claim to the back of karma cards. Get comfortable with extremes, and
Right.
the crypto edition. I got all these great marketing ideas.
Right. I think you should just do karma cards for crypto. Forget the rest of the cards. This will be like your legacy.
Right. Should I buy it or shouldn't I? It's all
Right.
focused on that.
I'm telling you.
Well, we did do something called the Enchanted Love Tarot, which is a tarot that's completely focused on love. That's this thing.
Wow.
Yeah, we did, and it's all the answers are framed in terms of love. So
wow.
we can do special work.
You're not limited, right?
No, my God. And then we have the Wild Goddess. It's an exciting time to be alive. I think one of the reasons is like people got scared by you and by the Twilight Zone is because they must not think that they can handle stuff, but they can if they're willing.
Well, they're here to handle stuff. They wouldn't be here. Like, look, 75% of the planet is level 1, level 2 souls. They'll say that they've only been incarnating 4,000 years. So I get it. But what's disappointing me is the level 3, 4, and 5 souls that are being willfully ignorant. Now, I don't know if it's really level 5 souls that are doing this, but what I'm that's about 100,000 people. So 100,000 people are level 5 souls, according to Michael Newton, who is the pioneer in life between life therapy and the research that his team, and they have a foundation for that where they're doing ongoing research. So, right. The point I'm trying to get at is that that 75% of the planet is waiting to be led into a new civilization that the type 3, 4, and 5 souls that have been incarnating since the Paleolithic era, right? And even those souls have been incarnating on other planets. See, one of the things I learned, and we could have a whole discussion next time on this, because this is some of the research I've been doing, right? Let me just state this before I go into that. Like, most people who are level 1 and level 2 are not into astrology. They're not into metaphysics, or if they're very put off by it. They're very put off by it. It's too extreme because they're still being initiated into living. They're still turned on by the entrapments of the secular life, right? Money, power, love, sex, all that stuff, right? And is right. Like, they make that their driving force. So, but the problem is that they need to grow. The level 3, 4, and 5 souls need to get them to create a world order that invokes growth so they can incarnate in the world, right? So they can move. So in other words, unless they successfully go through their life lessons, they're never going to get to level 3, level 4, level 5. So what happens is the people who are here now that are being called to leadership, being called to action, are those souls that have planned this for a long, long time and have to find a way to deal with those level 1 and 2 souls who put up that willful ignorance, right? How do you move 75% of the population in through a paradigm shift? That is what the real,
that's what these are for.
That's what those are for. So
I swear to God,
it's up to each one of us to make the change and to use the tools that have been around for millennia that can help us make that transition in a more graceful way.
Well, listen, I know it's shameless self-promotion, but karma cards are designed for people, I guess at level 1, 2, and 3, people who just, they heard about astrology or they want to play a game. And eventually by doing it, you increase your intuition. I remember one time my friends were having dinner with me and they asked me psychically, who is going to win the World Series? And I don't know much about sports. My joke is I was a gladiator in a past lifetime, and any game where the same number of people walk out as walked in, I'm not really interested in.
Right.
But I said to them, it just came tumbling out. I said, San Francisco. And they looked at me like I had 7 heads, because at the time that could not happen. And that was the year San Francisco won the World Series.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Great story.
So that's, it's up
Well,
to us as teachers and thought leaders to help people get unstuck from the rut they're in.
absolutely. I mean, someone just stated here is that, so that's why, so that is what is wrong with my coworkers. They're only level 1 and level 2. Well, that's probably the case, but something like initiating them, getting them initiated into certain things will get them to grow, right?
Right.
Because we're all here for soul development. We're not here
100%.
to, right? So that's, and look, we'll do a whole, I want to actually talk deeper about this, because I think when we have that perspective and then we look at the horoscope of an individual and say, where are they at in terms of their soul development? Then that really sort of changes what has to be emphasized and focused on, because a level 4 or 5 person is going to be focusing on something very different than someone who's a level 1 or 2 person who's struggling with their Saturn transits. Right. So, you know, so what I'm getting at here is that, look, the biggest problem right now is getting 75% of the population to realize that the biggest paradigm shift in humanity is underway.
Yes.
And that is going to happen over this next 20-year period.
Yes. Well, that's a great way to end it.
Yeah, I think so. Monte, why don't you give people some information how they can get your cards, how they can start working with it, if you'll be teaching courses on it.
Well, the good news about karma
cards for crypto will be coming out.
Karma cards for crypto is going to be out next week. No, only kidding. Karma cards. The great news is it's published by Sterling, which is owned by Barnes and Noble. So it's in every Barnes and Noble store. And if it's not in your local bookstore, I'd rather you get it in a local bookstore. It should be. And you can go to theenchantedworld.com or montefarber.com or amyzerner.com to find out more about us. Thank you, William. That was great.
Well, thank you, Monte. That was really, really good. It was really interesting to see you did that crypto prediction using the karma cards.
Yeah, Jupiter and Scorpio.
We'll have to revisit it in September 2029, right?
Yeah, Jupiter and Scorpio. That's really cool. And thanks to, we had like a whole bunch of people that stayed for the whole thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, everybody had some really good input and insight, and the commentary, I really enjoy it. We don't always talk, but it's very good to see that people are really engaged. Yeah. And for those of you interested in global transformation, astrology, or what's happening in the world, I have this group that's GTA, gta.williamstickevers.com. And I also have a crypto astrology group, which also is very similar to what I do in global transformational astrology. But it goes really into crypto. And we're not just talking about Bitcoin. We go into all the coins. I talk about it from the astrological perspective, investing perspective. So the crypto group is at gta.williamstickevers.com. Check it out if you can. And it's growing. And we just started this like over a month ago. And a lot of the members have actually done very well so far.
No, it's definitely, if you're not a member, you should join. And I'm not just saying it because he's my friend. It makes sense.
I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely join us, everyone, for another exchange, Astrology Exchange, next month. And Monte and I will bat around a few ideas. I do think what we touched on today, some of that we can continue that, but definitely talk about soul development. I think that's a really soul development in a much more tangible way.
Yeah.
That would then give people an idea of what's really happening and why. It's not just like we have individual souls, but you also have an oversoul, right? We have a collective soul, and everybody's participating in that in some way or other in that oversoul development, which is our civilization. So definitely stay informed and stay safe, everyone. We'll all see you again this time next month. Take care.
Bye, everybody.